Your Excellency Shri Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of the Republic of India, to Jawad Ashraf, High Commissioner of India to Singapore, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. Let me begin by extending a very warm welcome to Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and his distinguished delegation to Singapore and to today's business event. During Prime Minister Modi's last visit to Singapore in November 2015, we celebrated India and Singapore's 50th anniversary of diplomatic and economic relations. We were also honored to have Prime Minister Modi share his economic vision for India, as well as his aspirations for India and Singapore to pursue initiatives in trade and investment, smart city development, urban rejuvenation, and connectivity. Today, I'm pleased that India-Singapore economic relationship has continued to deepen, particularly in the areas that were identified by Prime Minister Modi in 2015. In 2017, our bilateral trade in goods grew by an encouraging 14.6% to 25 billion Sing dollars. Singapore's investments in India have also grown exponentially in the past decade and risen in recent years from $22.7 billion in 2014 to $36.3 billion in 2016. Singapore continues to partner and collaborate with India in sectors of mutual benefit. In connection with India's Smart Cities and Urban Rejuvenation Initiative, something which I know is very close to Prime Minister Modi's heart, I'm happy to share that the Maharashtra-Singapore Joint Committee was launched earlier this month. This is the second government-to-government project we have undertaken in India, which will see the development of a master plan to support the growth of the Pune metropolitan region, as well as downstream urban infrastructure projects. This collaboration complements what Singapore is already doing in Andhra Pradesh to develop the startup area of its new capital city, Amaravati. Singapore is also actively supporting Prime Minister Modi's Make in India campaign to boost India's manufacturing sector. Singapore companies like Tong Garden and Food Empire have made sizable investments to set up processing plants in states like Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat. Singapore companies also support the Make in India effort by providing efficient and reliable logistics capabilities. PSA's container terminal at Mumbai's Jawaharlal Nehru Port was officially launched by Prime Minister Modi in February this year. When phase 2 of the $1.2 billion terminal is completed at the end of 2022, it will have an annual container handling capacity of 4.8 million TEUs. Companies like YCH Group and Ascender Singbridge are also planning to do more in India's logistics and warehousing sector. These heightened economic activities have further enhanced people-to-people connectivity between India and Singapore. One indicator is that India and Singapore's air connectivity, with around 528 weekly flights between India's major metros and Tier 2 cities and Singapore, is operating at close to maximum capacity by most accounts. India and Singapore are also making efforts to improve our overall people-to-people ties. For example, an MOU was signed in April last year between Enterprise Singapore, the Confederation of Indian Industries, and 3 Singapore Institutes of Higher Learning to encourage young Singaporeans to take on work internships in India. We want young Singaporeans to be India-ready so that they can further strengthen our growing bilateral economic links. While we celebrate our progress, it is equally important that we don't forget the deep historical ties between India and Singapore, and in particular the contributions of early Indian traders and entrepreneurs in Singapore in the 1800s. Not only have they contributed significantly to the economic growth and development of modern Singapore, they have also enriched our multicultural society. Singapore's Indian community is a key node in the global Indian diaspora, and its many facets and achievements are today remembered and celebrated at the Indian Heritage Centre in Singapore, which I believe, Mr. Prime Minister, you'll be visiting on Saturday morning. Many Indian Singaporeans still retain strong ties to their ancestral homeland, which also contributes to the growing economic, political, and cultural linkages between India and Singapore. We also want to look ahead and build on these synergies and strengths. For example, in line with the theme of today's business event, there is significant potential for greater collaboration in the area of startups and innovation. India's startup scene has boomed in the past decade, and it is now the third largest startup ecosystem globally. India is expected to have 10,000 startups by the end of this decade, although I suspect that number will be far exceeded well before that deadline. And this tremendous growth presents opportunities for collaborations and partnerships between Indian and Singaporean startups. Earlier this evening, I had the pleasure of touring the Innovation Exhibition with Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. The adoption of frontier technologies such as artificial intelligence and data analytics, as well as innovation for social impact, is a testament to the sheer scope for collaboration between India and Singapore in this exciting space of startups. During his last visit, Prime Minister Modi said that, and I quote, "Singapore is an exciting incubator and India is a vast laboratory," unquote. And in that spirit, I'm happy to share that we have been working closely to develop a Singapore-India Innovation Network, which aims to establish a series of innovation corridors between the vibrant technology ecosystem in Singapore and the key innovation nodes in India. As part of this effort, Enterprise Singapore, in partnership with many players, will soon launch the Singapore-India Incubation Program to help Singapore startups access the India market with greater ease and catalyze collaborations between the respective ecosystems for the joint creation and development of innovative solutions. Similarly, the program will facilitate Indian startups' entry into Singapore's ecosystem and also through Singapore to access the broader ASEAN market. In the area of digital connectivity, India has made considerable advances through the implementation of Aadhaar, Digital Identification System, under Prime Minister Modi's Digital India initiative. Singapore companies continue to contribute to India's digitalization in niche areas like e-payment security, smart city management, and electronic commerce. One way to support this growth of digitalization is to enhance integration between India and Singapore's e-payment system. I'm therefore glad that National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI, and the Singapore's Network for Electronic Transfers, NETS, are collaborating to facilitate cross-border payments and cross-border payment solutions in both countries, starting with the acceptance of RuPay cards by NETS. This means that Indian nationals and tourists in Singapore will be able to use their domestic RuPay cards to make electronic payments at NETS merchants across Singapore. Against this backdrop of closer economic partnership and new areas of synergy, the prospects for our future collaboration are bright. And in this respect, Mr. Prime Minister, we are looking forward to hearing from you on your vision and plans for India's growth trajectory and the opportunities which our two countries can jointly pursue for mutual benefit. It therefore gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome Prime Minister Modi once again to Singapore and to invite him on stage to deliver his address. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, please.